Hey guys, Jay here. Welcome to Models and Memories Weekly, lucky number episode 13. Models and Memories is a show about nothing and it is filmed in front of a live studio audience. This is a show where I talk about my painting, modeling, and wargaming experiences from the week, and I end every episode with a story. Now you might think to yourself, Jay, you publish 3 YouTube videos a week and you stream every single night on YouTube. How could you possibly have more to say? Well, I do, and here goes. This week I visited my local Warhammer store and I got free stuff. These are freebie samplers from Black Library, which I have been reading a lot of Black Library books lately, and so I was really excited to get these. There's only a couple of books, or a couple of chapters of books in here that I've actually read before, and I read all of the Warhammer stories in this book, and they were actually really, really good. To Speak as One by Guy Haley, this is about, it must be more about Belisarius Cawl, because I'm almost done reading this book, The Great Work. I was actually a little bit confused because I thought that I was reading a chapter from The Great Work, and like, I haven't read this part, what's going on? This is a different book about the same characters, To Speak as One. But I really, really dig Belisarius Cawl. He's a really, really fun character. In this book I'm reading, there's a wonderful part where he is deciding what personality to have, because apparently he just got jars of personalities, and he picks them based on who he's interacting with. And so because of the Space Marines he's interacting with, he picks annoying. And so for the whole book, he's incredibly annoying and frustrating to the Space Marines, and it's brilliant. Cawl is a really, really cool character. Also, he made all the new Primaris stuff, so that's neat. Then after that is a book called Champions, and this one I'm really excited to read because it's Black Templar and Sisters of Battle. Black Templar being my chapter and Sisters of Battle being one of my favorites. And the more books I read with the Sisters of Battle in them, the more I absolutely love them. There's a wonderful, wonderful quote in one of these where a Sister of Battle is, they have a wonderful bluntness to them, where like, they're so like psycho-indoctrinated and crazy zealous that they speak in like statements, never questions, never, just pure bluntness. Like there's a part where a Sister of Battle is about to fight an orc and she just says, "You do not end me." Just a declarative statement that you are not gonna be the thing that kills me, but you do not end me. So there's not even room for the possibility of, all right, we're gonna fight each other and we'll see what happens. No, this orc is not gonna be the thing that kills them. I love the Sisters of Battle. They're super cool. They're great foils for other things, especially in this book, it's Sisters of Battle and Space Marines, or in Sisters of Battle and Black Templar Space Marines, which means that they're basically about in the same mindset, because the Black Templar venerate the god, or venerates the Emperor as a deity, and so do the Sisters of Battle. But in another book I read called Apocalypse, yeah, I think it was Apocalypse. It was Apocalypse. The Sisters of Battle are way more zealous than the Space Marines. And so when the Space Marines are interacting with the Sisters of Battle, they're like, who are these people? These weird and wacky Sisters of Battle. We're just gonna let them do their thing over in the corner. I really like these samplers, and I can't wait to read more Black Library books. It is actually really fun to curl up and read like a real book. Usually I listen to audiobooks because I can just listen to them most of the day while I'm walking the dogs or something. But it actually, I found that I was getting a lot more out of just physically reading it, because these books are complicated. There's a frustrating tendency in these 40K books to over-describe things. Almost to a laughable degree. Well, they'll describe what people are wearing and what they look like and how they're standing, and you know, your average book will do a little bit of explanation. But that's about it. This will go into like detail of like what color their clothing is, what material their clothing is made out of, what shape is the room that they're standing in. And it can get a little much, but when you're reading it, it flows a little better than when you're hearing it, I think. Although I do love the audiobooks. But neat. Can't wait to read this one. Also, imagine that going into a Games Workshop store and getting free stuff. Holy moly. I guess it is free stuff in the hopes that you buy more stuff, which I probably will. But you know what? Good job, Games Workshop. You got more money out of me. Oh boy, though. If I really do want to know my stuff and read the Black Library books, I think I'm gonna have to go Horus Heresy. And there's 50 books in the Horus Heresy. There's 50 books. Now, here's the thing that gets me with that. How good is the story? Like, how good could it possibly be? 50 books. Like, I know they're not big books, they're like 400 pages each, but 50. I mean, Harry Potter took 7. Lord of the Rings Lord of the Rings took 3. Come on now. Game of Thrones, how many books is Game of Thrones? It's not 50. It is not 50. 50 Horus Heresy novels seems a little excessive, but I own the first few, so I'll have to give those a read. I also got to do a little bit of painting this week. I had a painting party. It was so much fun. We just sat around and painted for a while. I painted this little fella. It is, technically it's a Legion Fleet Troopers model, and it is the guy who gets choked out by Darth Vader. And so I saved him for last because he wears slightly different color costume than the others. And he was just a fun little paint job. These little tiny Legion models are really fun. It's kind of like painting just little itty bitty models. Every brushstroke becomes really relevant and really the finished product. I also really like that these Legion models, they don't lend themselves to a lot of special effects. Often when I'm painting like a 40K mini, I feel like I'm always down on 40K minis in this video, but it's just comparison. I'm not saying one is better than the other. But with 40K models, it often starts with a few layers of special effect, like masking and airbrushing, or stippling, or texturing, or there's a bunch of kind of pre-steps. And so you spend an hour or two doing that and getting everything blocked out and ready, and then you break out the paintbrush and you finish everything. But with these little guys, you just prime them, and then you go right in with the paintbrush, and then they paint up in like an hour or two. Really nice. And sometimes you see a model, and for me, all I can think about is what I'll get to try on them. And so I have these Stormtroopers, also from Star Wars Legion, and I was really excited to try these out because I wanted to play around with the Games Workshop Contrast White Scars Lamian Medium White Astral Projection Gray Ghost. What is this paint called? Apothecary White. I was really excited to get to try out Apothecary White because I've used it here and there, and it's actually been really, really slick paint. And so I wanted to see what it would look on these Stormtroopers. And I think it did work. Apothecary White does seem to be a color that separates very quickly, and so after each Stormtrooper, I closed the pot, gave it a quick shake, and then repeated, and it did give them a little bit of contrast. They are very gray, so I'm gonna have to bring them back up to white. I think I'm gonna try to do that with dry brushing, because I do not want to sit there with a brush and carefully highlight everything with white that way. I would much rather figure out a mechanical way to do that as opposed to a artsy way to do that, but it worked all right. And it was a very good test subject for that. It did give them a nice bit of contrast, perhaps contrast paint. But these are 7. I think I'm gonna have to do 4 squads of these to make a proper army. And so whatever I figure out with these, I will keep it going for the rest of them. But the kind of nice thing about Legion is things are in units of 7, and I think you often take them as units of 6. So even though I have to paint 4 boxes, it's not like 40 Marines. 4 squads of 7, so 38 models. I could probably crush that out in a day if I really needed to. I cannot do 40 models in a day. But little models like these, I think I could do it. There is something nice about that somewhat low model count. But I can't wait to take these guys a few steps further. I really like learning my way around paint because once I really know what I'm doing, it just becomes like second nature. I can just do whatever I want to do without thinking. And so right now, I'm in the learning stages of Games Workshop contrast paints, but once I really know my way around them, it'll be like a third hand. And speaking of a third hand, on stream, live stream, by the way, I live stream every single night from 9 to 10 p.m. Central here on YouTube. Please come and hang out. I finished this model. This is the Games Workshop Limited Edition Chaplain in Terminator Armor, and it is probably the best model I've ever painted. It certainly took enough time to finish this paint job. And this mini has some examples of things I know how to do very, very well, particularly the use of Games Workshop reds, like Khorne Reds, Evil Sun Scarlet, and Mephiston Red. Although I find myself not reaching for Mephiston Red all that much, I often just darken Evil Sun Scarlets. But the Games Workshop Reds are buttery. Oh, they're really, really, really good. I don't really recommend the Games Workshop paint system as a whole. You definitely don't need all like 8,000 colors they offer, but the reds are really, really good. I have not found other reds that I like as much. They are very, very nice. And this model turned out really, really nice. I tried out some things. I'm still trying to learn my way around non-metallic metal. I think I have a few okay examples of non-metallic metal on this mini. I think really the way to learn non-metallic metal is not in 100 tiny, tiny details because it's just hard to get your reflections and your secondary reflections and your darker areas in them. I think really what I should do is I should probably find like a suit of armor or something with long areas, large panels that I can really try out my reflections on. But I think this guy, I think it is the best model I've ever painted. And I'm really, really happy with it. The only thing, if I could change anything, I think where his glowing head is, I think if I could fill in the area around his head, because there's glowing lights over his head that are shooting red light onto his face a little bit, but then there's just a dark void because his head is sitting in a dark void. And so I could see maybe if I could get some UV resin or something and just shove it in there. I would love to paint it very, very light red to white, so it really looks like there's crazy light shining on him. It looks okay now, like it's believable that the light is just hitting his head and you can see the darkness behind, but it's not my favorite. But all in all, very, very satisfied with this model. And I tried out something on the base. I painted black right along that base rim, and I think I really like it. I might have to go back and do this to all my Black Templars, because instead of just black base and then instant yellow sand, there's like a transition. It's like a vignette on a picture. It transitions from, the fake black base rim to very, very, very dark, shadowy sand, and then it goes into the proper sand-colored ground. And I really, really like that, especially for a big character model like this. I feel like it brings the attention up as opposed to that line where the base starts. So really, really happy with this mini. And I think my trying really, really hard with painting is used up for the time being. I think I really, really want to paint something a little bit mindless, something a little rank and file, because this guy was a long, long painting project. And so I think I need a little something in between my next try-hard model. Another thing I saw do the rounds this week was Games Workshop updated their model requirements. I saw a bunch of YouTube videos that were talking all about this and how, Games Workshop is no longer going to be allowing 3D purchased bits on their minis. And this is an outrage. How dare they stifle our creativity and expelling all those people who want to use 3D printed shoulder pads or cool looking heads. How dare they? But if I could put on my Games Workshop shill hat for a second, it seems like a lot of people missed the name of this PDF that they published called Model Requirements for Events at Warhammer World. So, reading between the lines, I think that this is requirements for events that take place at Warhammer World. It doesn't seem like these are requirements that are rolling out for every store across America, and I also don't think that the Games Workshop Gestapo are gonna knock on the door of every hobbyist and be like, are those female sister Space Marine battleheads? Like, maybe, I get it. This is not cool if you do play at Warhammer World and you have a really cool converted army. But I think most people, they don't need to worry about this. But don't worry, I got you covered if you are one of those people with a really, really cool 3D printing conversion army and you still want to play at Warhammer World. Okay, so you got your box of minis, and you're a little nervous, but you're keeping it cool. You don't want to draw any suspicion. But the Games Workshop secret police come up to you anyway. And they're like, oi, where'd you get that shoulder pad? So you're cool as a cucumber. You say, oh, cool. Thank you for your interest in my army. I'm really excited about it too. I 3D printed it and sculpted it myself. And they're like, yourself, matey? And here's what you do. Here's the lie. You say, yes, I printed it at home by myself using my Anycubic Photon Mono. And they're like, oh, it seems a bit dodgy, eh, there? If you ask me, did you sculpt it yourself there? And then you're like, yes, I did in a program called Blender. It's a free open source 3D graphic software toolset used for creating animated films, visual effects, and printed models. And at this point, I'm sure the Games Workshop police will be like, oh, well, I suppose I get on then, eh? That is exactly what I expect to happen. So for you folks visiting Warhammer World with your 3D printed models, just say those things exactly, and I'm sure you'll get away with it. And more new things from Games Workshop this week. We got our leak of some new orcs possibly, and then the sure thing Warhammer community released a picture of the new orcs, and they're great. They look exactly like the old orcs. In fact, they look like the old orcs The old orcs now look like a blurry photograph of the new orcs because the details are a little softer. I mean, the old orc box is 20 years old. The new one, it's just updated. It looks great. It looks nice. It'll be really interesting to see how it goes together because newer Games Workshop kits seem a little bit more dynamic in their posing, and that means that you can. The old orc kit was very like arm. You know, you can have a little bit of action figure posing available to them. So it'll be interesting to see if they keep that with the new models or not. I'd be fine either way. I think I've built a lot of the old orcs, and you know, you do get some range of motion, but not that much. I wouldn't mind if they just gave us sculpts that they go together, you know, one or two ways, but they go together one or two really good looking ways. But from the orc they released, it looks great. It looks just like the regular orc. The only thing I've seen online is a little bit of grumbling that the face is slightly different or changed a little. I don't know if I see it, but what I do see is, for some reason, the orc kit, I don't know if they repainted it over the course of the last 20 years, but the orc faces are painted really, really well on the web store. Like, every little detail is perfectly highlighted, the eyes are picked out. Like, nowadays, it seems like the Warhammer community, or the, what do they call themselves? The heavy metal painters, they seem to have really nailed it on their style, where it's very good, but potentially achievable for your average hobbyist. Whereas there was a period like, I don't know, maybe 6 to 10 years ago where they really kind of allowed themselves to go all out a little bit. And I think they kind of went all out on those orc faces. Because I don't know if I've seen anywhere online orc faces that look as good as they do on the web store. So if you're comparing the old orc web store heads to the new orc heads, I could see the disparity, but if you look at most people's orcs, which are green and then literally a dip wash with brown, I don't think you're gonna notice much difference between the new heads and the old heads. And I don't know if I liked any of the Games Workshop orc heads. I actually found a company called Spellcrow, and I bought a whole bunch of their orc heads, which are really nice and ugly, and I love them. This week I did paint with a bunch of friends, and it reminded me what is really important to the Warhammer hobby. And it's not the Warhammer hobby. That's really like a secondary thing to the enjoyment, but it's just spending time with people and being social and doing things together. That's really where the fun is in anything. I mean, there are some activities that are very fun to do on your own, like reading or maybe watching movies. Good movies. I don't really like watching good movies with people. It's more fun to watch bad movies with people. And painting can also be something that is enjoyed kind of solo. But for me, the thing that's really makes Warhammer painting a little bit more rewarding than just regular painting is the illusion or the hope that I'm painting this mini in preparation for having a great time with friends. And I think that is actually what fuels a lot of hobby finishing and a lot of hobby painting. Because really, the most fun you'll ever have is hanging out with people. I mean, people who exercise together, they're having just as much fun as people playing Warhammer. People who are playing golf, they're having just as much fun as Warhammer. Like, I don't think there's anything magical about Warhammer where, if you play with Legos, that's great, but if you play Warhammer, Legos are 80% fun, but Warhammer's 100% fun. I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think it really matters what you're doing. It's just the social enjoyment aspect is really what makes it worthwhile. And because Warhammer does have that attached social interaction in the gaming, I think that is really what its claim to fame. And I think it is a little bit leeching off of that having fun together because, it's the street you met on. It's the, the Warhammer memories are part of those memories of having fun times together. Because I've just hung out with friends and, just chit-chatting and making fun of each other. And that's really just as much fun as playing a game of 40K. But the times where I was playing 40K with friends, I had such a good time with my friends, and Warhammer is part of those good feeling memories. And so I'm not bashing 40K. I think 40K is great, and I love playing it, and it's really fun, and it's really interesting, and it's really cool to paint the minis. But 40K is not magic. I don't think you're owed a good time just because you're playing the 40K game. I think you need to help it along by getting yourself to a gaming group, or maybe getting some other friends invested in the hobby. Best case scenario, obviously, is to go in together, have two people and be like, we're gonna go play Malifaux. That's your best bet, because if you start collecting an army with no one in mind to play with, then you're a little bit just stuck with, okay, well, maybe I can enter that tournament over there. Or maybe if I go to that game store on a Thursday night, I can get a game in with whoever is there, whether they're fun or interesting or you guys get along or not. I think the best case scenario is you and some buddies. That's really what you want. So this is what I worked on this week, but speaking of Eons of Battle, we are halfway to our Patreon goal of getting to film some battle reports, and we're really excited about how we're gonna do it. I think we're gonna have the best and most cinematic battle reports, and we've recently invested in some new equipment. Really excited with what we're gonna do with this bad boy. But if you wanna see it, the best way to support us is by becoming a member of our Patreon. Over there, you'll gain access to some behind the scenes voting on what models I paint live on YouTube, a live hobby hangout where you can sit around and chat with us on a Friday night, and more. It's now time for the story segment of the video. This is where I talk about the story behind the object. I think miniatures in particular have a really, really good way of capturing the emotions and the feelings that you had while working on them. And so for this week, I have a story. And so what will I pick this week? This. If any of you recognize what this is, please leave yourself a comment where you pat yourself on the back, because this is a little bit of a deep dive. But this does not sit on my YouTube shelf. This sits in my bedroom because it holds my change, my wallets, and my keys. Let me demonstrate. Yeah, a kangaroo pouch, even though this is the pouch. Doesn't it make perfect sense? I love this thing. But the reason I have it is because this was in one of my all-time favorite movies, Pulp Fiction. Do you remember it? You probably don't. It's a very, very tiny little moment. It's towards the end of the movie. The character Butch Coolidge, Bruce Willis, he was given this watch. And he was given this watch. I love Quentin Tarantino's movies. I love Pulp Fiction. And so I have these two are my kind of pieces of memorabilia. So Butch Coolidge, this is his watch given to him by Commander Kuhn, who was in the war with his father, and he was given a trench watch. And I got this on eBay for a great deal because it doesn't work, and billions of these were made for the war. So they're not hard to come by. But in the movie, of course you all know it's Pulp Fiction, there's a wonderful Christopher Walken monologue where they were both prisoners of war, and his father put this up his ass, and it goes on and on and on. It's filmed very straight though, like really kind of clinical, and which makes it even funnier. But then later on in the story, the father dies of dysentery, which kind of implies that he died because of this watch, because Christopher Walken survived, he was fine. But I love Pulp Fiction, I love the story, and I love these two objects. But where does the kangaroo come from, you say? So this is when Bruce Willis has to go back for his watch, his father's watch, because it was left in their apartment. His father's heirloom, the last thing he has of him, is sitting on this kangaroo. It's sitting on the tail like this in the movie. And you just see for a second Bruce Willis's hand come and take the watch. From this, I love Quentin Tarantino so much. He has so much style that, because you'd imagine, oh, this is probably just sitting beautifully on the nightstand with a beautiful spotlight hitting it right perfectly, framing it. Nope, it's on a kangaroo. The boxer Bruce Willis, Butch Coolidge, he bought this, or his mom gave it to him, or a girlfriend might have given it to him. I just love that little detail. It's really silly, and it's actually really convenient. It does hold all my stuff. But yeah, Quentin Tarantino makes some of my favorite movies. I think Django Unchained is probably one of the best movies ever made. It's just so stylish and action-packed. I love all his movies. The Hateful Eight recently was fantastic. It's not like a stage play, it is a stage play. It's just a filmed stage play. And so that is what I think about every time I look at this model. And I think about it, I actually got this on eBay. I got both of these pieces on eBay. And I remember looking through all the different eBay listings to see which one was about the right color. I think this one is a little bit too orange compared to the one in the film, but I really love it. It's so ridiculous, it's so silly. I just love all of the decisions that lent itself to this being the thing. From a very otherwise violent and very funny movie that I have seen hundreds of times, but I love Quentin Tarantino, and so this is what I wake up to every single morning. I take my keys, I take my wallet, I take my change from this kangaroo. I absolutely love it. I know there's other things I could acquire from Quentin Tarantino's movies, like famously the Lucky Strike cigarettes have made an appearance in every one of his movies across time, and the Big Kahuna burger would be a really, really fun prop. But I just really, really like this one. I think it's a lot of fun. And so this is the one I have chosen. You know, and also the more I look at it, so this is not his tail, this is his tail. So is this like a baggie? Like a sack? Kind of attached to his neck. I think that just adds to his charm, that this doesn't make any sense. I love it. I absolutely love it. That is the story for this week's Models and Memories Weekly. But this brings this episode of Models and Memories to a close. I hope you guys enjoyed it, but now it's time for the real star of the show, let's be honest. This week's EOB Complete submissions. We put out a challenge to our community to send us before and after photos of their recently finished models to be immortalized in our videos. If you want to join in the fun, you can submit a before and after photo of your painted mini to our Discord server, which you can find in the description below, or you can post it to Instagram with the hashtag EOBComplete. Without further ado, let's look at and get inspired by what the folks have finished this week. A tank by Ink Minky, an ironclad dreadnought by Huntron, a Cragnose by Lube, an Imperial Guard by Just Make Stuff, a Plague Doctor by Alexander 452, an Iron Hands Land Raider by Bluevin Cheese, an Underchief Meyer by Lex Killcannon, a Primaris Chaplain on Bike by Chooch 7097, an Old School Space Marine by Jesuchin, an Underworld's Reaver by Sparkling Squid, a Kill Team Game Board by Belasco, a Plague Marine by Wide and Rake FH12, a Harlequin Voidweaver by Cider, a Space Marine Apothecary by Dreech, a Telemon Dreadnought by Sakuretsu, an Eldar Warlock by Testo, a Primaris Space Marine by Strutin, a Morven Vol by Dark Lord Budish, an Orc with Rocket Launcher by Mick Chavey, a Primaris Captain by Ger, an Emperor of Mankind by Cyrene, some Rising Sun models by Boba Fett IG-88, a Redemptor Dreadnought by Kozer, an Imperial Guard Commissar by Simon Lobotomized Monkey, a Medusa Iron Scale by Stroectaurus, an Evil Cultist by Shadow Nomad, the Emperor by The Happy Heretic, a Dwarf Frigate by Scotch and Hobbies, and a Grey Knight by Matthew. Congratulations to everyone for a job well done. It's no small feat to get paint on minis, and you all should feel really proud. Nothing gets the hobby juices flowing like finishing a project, and we all thank you for sharing your work, motivating us and the hobby community to paint our plastic. Thanks for sharing.